What is your promise? Why are you in business? How do you expect to grow?
This is The Hook, a show focused on branding, marketing, and business development.
You brand to inspire, not to sell.
Jason Arsmont, the marketing maverick, gives expertise to business owners, serial entrepreneurs, and anyone interested in building a stronger company brand.
Creating a brand is like telling a story. You've got one shot to say it all.
When your marketing works, you've got them on the hook.
We're kicking off spring break with you. This is The Hook, along with Jason Arsmont. That is the marketing maverick. This show is called The Hook because we hook you in. We make you want to listen. It's not like you didn't want to listen before, but then we said, hey, we have some very important information and we'll figure it out later. But you said, well, I'm going to listen anyway. Do you get all that? You're looking at me like you're confused.
Well, that's kind of not what the hook is. But
this is what DJs do. We talk in circles.
Yeah, it was a good circle.
Okay.
I like that. The hook, though, actually is helping you establish your hook in business.
Oh, okay.
All right,
okay,
so
okay.
this is a show dedicated to helping you build your business, making the most out of your company through marketing, sales, operation, leadership, motivation. We've got a great guest today.
Yeah, great guest that's going to be calling in. This is brought to you by Brightbox Brand Marketing, which we know a little bit about because, well, I'm an employee and Jason, well, it's his company. So
Yeah, founded that one about 8 years ago. It's a full-service brand marketing firm. So if you need any help with strategic marketing direction, web development, graphic design, public relations, trade shows, print, you name it, check us out at brightboxonline.com.
And you can always check out our references. If you go to our website, then you'll see we got some great case studies there. People that have used us before that can really tell you what we are able to do and our efficiency with their projects.
Yeah. Got some good marketing tips. Got Josh has got some videos on there. So yeah, it's definitely a good site, good resource, a great company, if I do say so myself.
You can reach it through thehookradio.com if you like to.
that's true.
That'd be the easiest way probably because we want to tell you about thehookradio.com to get everything. And then you can splinter off into different sales if you want to go to OnToBox or if you want to go to Brightbox or, whatever it might be.
Or maybe you just want to catch this show again because it's going to be so good.
There you go.
You can always go. We podcast it up. We've got a library of all the past shows, so you can go to thehookradio.com, click on radio, and you'll see down towards the bottom a list of all the shows that we've produced.
UFC 196, who won? Who would you say won out of the co-main and the main event? Who do you think won?
I would say Dana White won.
The UFC
because
won.
it was crazy. I didn't expect either one of those. I guess I kind of did on the McGregor-Diaz fight, but I kind of didn't want Diaz to do that.
I did.
But I kind of thought he would. The bigger guy, he's a hell of a boxer.
This isn't going to be fight talk. That's not what we're doing here. We talk about people's personal brands a lot of times. And I think that everyone that fought in the co-main and the main event, and even the UFC, Dana White, everyone won. Because the championship fight between Holly Holm and Miesha Tate, Holly Holm was a gracious loser in that, and Miesha Tate's a great winner.
Yeah.
And to pull out the win the way she did was fantastic. In the fight between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, these are two epic talkers.
Yeah. Yeah.
These two, they talk.
They built their brands on doing some
with
major
Nick
talking.
Diaz, Nate's brother. These are the biggest talkers in the UFC.
Yeah.
And they put on great performances.
And it was a good fight. And it was a fight that really, for the sake of their careers, really made no difference.
No.
Right? They did it at catchweight, so there wasn't a belt. McGregor didn't give up a belt or anything like that. They just made a ton of money and gained a ton of exposure for their brands.
And respect, too.
And respect.
Because after
McGregor
the fight,
did good. He may have lost, but I thought he did really good with that bigger guy than he's used to fighting. I mean, he was putting it on Diaz before Diaz put it back on him.
After the fight, you could see that the losers were very humble and the winners were gracious in winning. And I think it was probably the perfect storm for the UFC. There's no doubt about that. So I think personally it was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, it was definitely a good card, good night, a lot of fun. It's interesting when you look at that dynamic and those people that do really well in that space, they're normally good talkers. And maybe by being a good talker, you could even say that they're kind of leading the industry, right? They're leading the UFC, what it means to be, a top tier fighter. And I respect that. It takes craft, it takes, intention. A lot of that isn't just accidental. These guys aren't just doing this on accident. They're intentionally wanting to be a leader within their division or within the whole ranking system. And that's a great segue into who our guest today is. We've got an unbelievable leader who's going to talk with us about drive, determination, commitment, the one and only Colonel Allen West. For those of you who may not be too into politics, Colonel Allen West was the first black congressman out of Florida, took a Democrat chair and won it for, I guess, a term, and then he ended up losing to a Democrat. He'll probably share some of that story with us and said, hey, I got to get out of this state, and came here to our beloved Texas. And he is here now. He is the president of a nonprofit here, I think, out of Austin. So regardless, he's got military background in the U.S. Army, he's got political background, he's got nonprofit background, and just a wealth of knowledge and resource when it comes to leadership. So I'm excited to have him here in studio, and he will no doubt be an unbelievable guest for you guys to learn from. And he usually has some great stories and anecdotes, so I'm sure you guys are going to love him.
Just another example of you having friends in high places and me not having friends. I mean, let's be honest here.
Well, oddly enough, so apparently I saw Colonel West speak at an event, an ROTC event in the Woodlands, and he had mentioned that he was an avid runner, an endurance runner. Huh. So after the event, I sent him a copy of my book of me running across Texas, the little picture book that we did. Yeah. And he responded to it in an email saying, hey, thanks so much for the book. And that's when I was able to tell him about the radio show and invited him on, and he graciously accepted. And so this has been a long time coming, but, it's not necessarily just having great friends. It's networking, man.
Networking. How important is networking?
You got to work it. You got to work it. So, from one endurance runner to the next, we got a great guest, which also, speaking of that endurance run, for those of you who don't know, a couple Octobers ago, I took a month off and I ran across the entire state of Texas. For some reason, I felt it was the best way for me to raise awareness and money to help fight against child sex trafficking, was to combine my passions of wanting to help put an end to this problem and endurance running. And so I started in El Paso, Texas, and I ran a marathon every single day for 30 days straight, covering the entire state of Texas all the way to Orange. And I just learned yesterday of another gentleman who's doing a great cause, and he's not running, he's marching, but in full military gear.
Really?
He's doing 628 miles around Texas to raise awareness about post-traumatic stress.
Wow.
He's a veteran himself. Ken Mayers, his march is called Never Quit March, and he is suffered PTS and is wanting to, I guess he's living through this, this problem, this struggle, and he's wanting to raise awareness and be there for his other brothers and sisters that are from the military and in the military, and help show that somebody else is out there still marching for him. So I'm really excited about this. I'm probably going to try to get Ken on here if I can and share his story with us a little bit. You can go to the LoneSurvivorFoundation.org and go to upcoming events. And you'll see Never Quit March for PTS awareness on there. Ken's got a really cool story from his time in the Air Force. He was a security police veteran from what I'm reading, a couple years ago, he was attacked by a bear up in Montana, which kind of heightened his PTS. Yeah.
Is it PTS or PTSD?
He's always referred to it as PTS.
Okay.
And I guess, I don't know medically why that is, but I guess they're no longer seeing it as a disorder. It's just something that you're going through maybe. I don't know.
We can ask him about that whenever he comes on.
Yeah, I'd like to learn a little bit more. If anybody out there knows and you're listening, go to thehookradio.com, shoot me an email, let me know why they dropped the D. Because you're right, I always heard of it with the D, and as I've been talking with Ken's people and trying to coordinate to get him on the show, nobody's referring the D or referencing the D anymore. So I'm excited to possibly have him on. I'm looking forward to getting involved a little bit more with this effort myself. Maybe I'll go out and walk a day with them, or they're doing a big meetup at Texas Frog Fest in Galveston over at Crystal Beach. That's where he ends the march. So
I guess that's the closest place he'll be to here, because if he's walking the coast.
Well, he's starting. It's kind of a roundabout thing he's doing. So he's not covering the state. He's just doing this big circle looks like he's starting at Conroe, then he goes up to College Station.
Oh, okay. I thought he was
Fast route
staying
through Austin.
Oh, I thought he was staying along the border, all the way on the outside of the border. Now I get it. Okay.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
he's doing a walkabout, marchabout.
A march about?
Yeah.
That's a lot of gear to wear.
So
whenever
that's
you're doing
awesome,
that.
man. I just, I love those kind of things. They really inspire me and really show what leadership is about, taking a position, going out there, supporting your brothers and sisters, giving them a cause to lean on and a shoulder there, and giving hope to people. I mean, that's leadership. And that's what we're going to talk about in our next segment when we come back from break. I'm going to break down the traits of a good leader.
Business tip on the way next. You're listening to The Hook.
Now, Daddy didn't like trouble, but if it came along.
We are back on The Hook with Jason Arsemont. He's our marketing maverick. This is where we normally do our business tip, but well, we have more pressing issues right now because we have our guest on the line. It's great because we'll push back the business tip till later because we really want to have this guest on as soon as possible. So
yeah, couldn't be any better segue into this guest from our previous segment. We're talking about leadership, probably somebody who's spent more time in a leadership position and has been around other influential leaders, from his time in the U.S. Army to his being a congressman in Florida. Our guest today is none other than the Colonel Allen West. Colonel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Jason. Josh, good to be with you all.
I was sharing with the folks how I originally got connected with you. It was not through leadership or politics. It was actually hearing about you being an endurance runner and sending you a copy of my book.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I try to stay up on my Army fitness routine. Of course, now that I'm 55, I can't get out there and bust out those half marathons like I used to, but I still try to keep a good physical fitness regimen going.
Absolutely. Yeah, it keeps the mind right, especially when you're as busy as you are. We were talking about leadership earlier and what does or doesn't make a good leader. No doubt in your career you've met some unbelievable folks, and I know you've been a great leader at certain positions in your life. Are there any kind of key attributes that stand out to you for what makes a strong leader?
Yeah, my 22 years in the military, and ever and since, I kind of came to the understanding, and it was taught to me that leadership is based upon 5 points, and I call it the 5 C's. The first one is courage. The second one is competence. The third is commitment. The fourth is conviction, and the last one is character. And I think that whether it's the business world or military or what have you, when you have leaders that make those courageous and bold decisions, that are willing to, take in the information of those that are around them, but are not so concerned about swimming with the rest of the fish, but sometimes will swim against the current. That's what you need, and you need to have people that are competent in their decision making and thought process. Because as I told people, no one follows a dummy into a firefight, and I think it's the exact same thing in the business world, and that's where you look for those intelligent, innovative, and highly competent leaders. You have to be committed to a core set of principles and values, because if you don't have that basic foundation, then what do you really stand for? And something that my mother taught me growing up, that a man must stand for something or else he'll fall for anything. So commitment is very important. And then conviction. I mean, it is one thing that you say that you're committed to principles, but you must show that conviction. You must show that spirit and that enthusiasm to stand for those things when no one else will stand for it. And that's how you really win people over in the power of your presentation of your points and your principles and values, because of that strong conviction. And then the last thing is all about character. And what I always taught my soldiers and also my daughters is that character is doing what is right when no one's watching.
Yeah. Yeah, you combine that with the passion and the other attributes. I mean, it's definitely makes for an unbelievable leader and somebody that you can willfully follow. So, in your long career, I'm sure you've been under so many great leaders. Is there any one that stands out more so than others that you reflect on at times?
Well, I will tell you that the person or the two gentlemen that had the most influence on my military career, one was my battalion commander when I was in the 1st Infantry Division. That was Lieutenant Colonel John R. Gingrich. And the other was my brigade commander when I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I just got a chance to be with him last Friday up in Cary, North Carolina. That was Colonel Denny R. Lewis. Wow. And these two men were the embodiment of leadership with their passion, with their vision that they had, and their commitment to, the Army values and principles, and their competence as, brilliant artillerymen. And so, I just prayed that, one day I could reach those levels and I could be as a forthright leader as they were. And so, as a matter of fact, in my book, Guardian of the Republic, I bring out, what I learned from Colonel Denny R. Lewis, and he was just an incredible influence on me. But I think in the history of the world, I go back, I see, someone like Leonidas of Sparta, who, stood convicted and committed to the principles of Sparta. And the great quote, "Go tell the Spartans and strangers passing by that here obedient to their laws we lie." He was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, and we see men and women still doing that today in our military. Of course, Alexander the Great, Hannibal, two fantastic visionary leaders. Hannibal I love because he led from the front, just the same as Alexander. But, without a doubt, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Harry Truman is one of my favorites. And then, of course, Ronald Reagan, when I look at the great leaders of our country.
Wow. Yeah, that's just a few there. Yeah, this country's obviously been founded by just unbelievable leaders. And what I found really interesting with some of the influential leaders in my life is that they stuck with me. Just as you said, you met back up with some of those that you had mentioned here recently. I had a scout leader that followed me through the rank of Eagle, and his popped up again and again in my life, and has continued to be a leader and a role model for me as I moved into being an adult and through my professional career. So I think that's unbelievable. One of the things that I'm hearing from you is especially with your military background, and I know a lot of our listeners who run businesses and companies and are trying to create morale and create a company environment in which can grow and flourish and have camaraderie. You've spent time leading men, oftentimes into battle. What does it take to breed other leaders? I think that's difficult for a lot of us business owners that maybe don't come from that type of training or that environment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will tell you that the most important aspect of leadership is not what you accomplish, but what you enable others to accomplish. And so when I understand leadership, and I gave my life to Christ back in January of 1980, it's about servant leadership. It's not about, you being there to be served, but how can you serve others? And when you have that participatory type of leadership, when you have that leadership that sets the example, then others will rally to you. I tell you, one of the heartwarming things for me is that when I have, young men that were cadets of mine back in 1991 to 1994 when I taught ROTC at Kansas State University, and they call me and tell me, hey, look, I just got promoted to lieutenant colonel. I just made colonel. I'm heading off to the War College. I'm commanding a brigade. That's what you want to produce. It's about the legacy that you establish and the lineage of, committed and convicted and principled leadership. So I think that the most important thing is that if you're in a leadership position, it's about teaching, coaching, and mentoring the next generation of future leaders.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially in a business environment. You can't grow, you can't flourish if you're not bringing up kind of that next generation of people that are going to take your spot so that you can focus on bigger and better initiatives.
Yeah, you're right, and it's not about micromanaging, because in micromanaging you're not developing people.
Right.
But if you are there to, what I used to call it in my battalion, every day, every soldier needed to understand what their task and purpose was, and that task and purpose had to come from, my vision, and what I saw was our overall task and purpose, and my commander's intent, the purpose of our operations and what we're doing, the method by which we're going to achieve it, and the end state. People have to understand what the end state is. And when they get that, then you can make sure that all the way down to the newest, private, they understand their task and purpose and what their part is in that battalion or that company that they play.
Yeah, and what I think is frustrating at times is when people aren't on board with your vision. And I know, your time as a congressman, obviously taking a Democrat's chair, there had to be situations where you had people that you needed to get on your team who didn't initially agree with you. Do you have any advice or some stories on how you were able to overcome some of those situations?
Well, the thing is, once again, when you have you present your case, your argument, or whatever that is rooted in fundamental principles that people can say I don't like it, but it'll be very hard to disagree with it or to not accept it. When I'm out here in Dallas, Texas now with the National Center for Policy Analysis, but when I was back in South Florida, after losing the re-election by 0.46%, I mean there were people that were Democrats that saw me and when I go back maybe to visit like I did at Thanksgiving, they'll come up to me and say, hey, look, we didn't exactly like you, but we knew one thing about you. You would never lie to us. You would always tell the truth, and anything that you were saying was about your convictions. And people respect that. I mean, when you go back and you think about how Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill worked together, even though they were from definitely different parts of the political spectrum.
Right.
It was all about the common shared goal of what? To make sure we improve the quality of life for the American citizen and we keep them safe. And so I think that's what we have to get back to.
Absolutely. We're talking with Colonel Allen West here on The Hook. I think something else that I've gotten, because I sent out some emails or some stuff on social media, I got some questions from folks, some business owners about leadership that they thought you'd be great to answer. One of the things that we're seeing with this new generation of millennials is basically, for lack of better words, just a right of entitlement and not conforming to kind of chain of command and kind of the structure that is needed within a business environment so that everyone knows where their spot on the bus is. Do you have any experience in working with some of this younger generation or how to motivate or put in those proper chains of command and discipline?
Oh, sure. Let me tell you something. When I was a young lieutenant, if we saw, anyone that was above the rank of captain, we crossed the street to get away from them. As a matter of fact, we risked getting run over by a car instead of, running to a major, definitely a lieutenant colonel. I mean, because, that's just the respect that we had. But by the time that I was, coming out of the military 22 some odd years later, I mean, you had lieutenants that were coming around thinking they were ready to command a division. They were ready to be generals. They're the second coming of George Patton. But this is what I call the evolution of the Society of the Participation Trophy. When we started on the Little League fields and the soccer fields of not keeping score, telling everyone that they were great, and giving them the little plastic trinket that they can put up on their mantle to give them some sense of self-worth, now you see people that believe they're entitled to, that trophy. What do you mean I don't get a bonus? Everyone should get a bonus. And there is no such thing as exceptionalism, or there's no such thing as that ultimate sense of service, sacrifice, and commitment. Now, I think that we are, combating against that. But let's be very honest. When you look at, certain political campaigns and people are following along because they hear about this is going to be free or that's going to be free, or as recently, Bernie Sanders said that health care is a right, it's a right to you as a human being. Well, when man starts to come down and believes that he can just give you the participation trophy, you move away from what Thomas Jefferson established, your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, to now people believing that they should be guaranteed happiness.
Straight talk with Colonel Allen West. Now, I know we want to talk a little bit about your current place where you're at with the NCPA, and we got to take a short break. So can you hang on with us just 1 minute while we take a quick break and come back? Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, we're coming right back. TheHookRadio.com is where you find us online. More of The Hook after this.
You could say I'm a little bit crazy. You could talk.
We are back on The Hook. Very interesting conversation about leadership, and our guest is, I'm going to say this, that one of the best guests that we've had so far. Colonel Allen West is on with us. We've had some really great guests on, but the insight into leadership I find is magnificent, because Well, the way I look at it is like Jason was talking about being an Eagle Scout earlier, and I saw that you had a chance to speak in front of some Eagle Scouts. I'm not sure how long ago it was, but do you think that that's a good platform for kids and the younger generation, like Jason was talking about earlier?
No, I think it's a great platform. It was actually a congressional representative, Kenny Marchant, and he has his annual recognition of Eagle Scouts in his congressional district. He's a former colleague, and he asked me to come over and speak to them about leadership. And so when I think about these young men, and I got to be a Light Scout, I never made it the Eagle Scout, but when I think about
I won
these
up
young
on
men,
Colonel.
you won up on me, brother.
I'll
but
take
when
it.
you look at these young men and how we're challenging them to go out and servant leadership, to come up with a project that they have to go out and serve others in the community, and they have to go out, merit badges. Isn't that an incredible thing? Merit badges, meritocracy, that you must go out and earn something, and there's pride in that. I think that's the basis of what we need to do once again in the United States of America, is get people to understand that there is an incredible sense of pride that you can attain when you go out and earn something yourself through your own hard work and merit, and not sit back, as we talked about in the previous session, waiting for someone to give you the little plastic trophy as a participant.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it with the servant heart. I think so much more can be done when what we're doing comes from that place of serving, rather than wanting to obtain a certain thing. Leading with that heart, and that kind of great little segue into what you're doing now. I know you're now at the National Center for Policy Analysis. You want to maybe tell the listeners a little bit about that organization if they're not familiar?
Sure, absolutely, and I appreciate that. The NCPA, National Center for Policy Analysis, is a 33-year-old conservative free market think tank headquartered here in Dallas, and what we do is we look at federal government policy in the areas of tax, entitlement, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security reform, as well as health care, education, energy, and national security policy. We have about 19 folks, 3 in Washington, D.C., 16 here at Dallas, who are the direct employees and doing our policy research and analysis and getting those things out there that you can follow at www.ncpa.org. But then we also work with another 25 to 30 contributing researchers and writers, such as the Private Enterprise Research Center down at Texas A&M, or the Beacon Hill Institute at Suffolk University up in Boston, Massachusetts, which does a lot of our tax analysis center work, where we do analysis of tax plans and tax structure. So, please check us out, because I think one of the most important things is that we educate and inform the American citizenry on the solutions, the policy solutions, not just the politics.
Right. And I know there's currently a petition that you guys are doing to support our troops. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I wanted to get NCPA expanded into was national security, and we've got a great former Air Force officer who just earned his Ph.D., Dr. David Grantham, myself. And what we have developed, since we're in the National Defense Authorization Act development, and final vote will probably be in April, is a petition called Provide for the Common Defense Now. And again, you can go to ncpa.org and follow that. But there are 5 key points that we want to bring out. How do we build an effective and efficient military force for the 21st century battlefield? How do we transform our warfighting strategy so that we're winning on the battlefield? This is not about nation building, but it is going in and truly defeating the enemies. It's about having that type of focus. How do we reform our acquisition and procurement systems? Because if you want to talk about what is really hurting the DoD budget more than anything else, it's the cost overruns of weapon systems that many times the military does not want, but because there's a defense industry in a district of a member of Congress or a certain state, those things are getting pushed on the military. We have to look at how we reduce the size and scope of these higher headquarters, such as the Pentagon, such as the Central Command or the Pacific Command or whatever, because we need to be focused on those men and women that are out there on the battlefield, that we need to enable them to have success. And another part of that is, how do we make sure we have the right rules of engagement out there so that the enemy family doesn't get the initiative. And lastly, we have to better compensate our men and women. You know, a lot of people don't realize that our young soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines enlisting and coming into our military are paid, you know, way below the poverty level. We're talking about $18,000 to $19,000, and some of them are coming in with families. And so what they immediately have to do, they go on government food assistance programs, and that's just abhorrent. You know, so when you think about that, you think about how we're not doing well treating our veterans at the VA healthcare system. We got to do a little bit better with compensating those young soldiers.
Yeah, I mean, it's no wonder we're having such issues with PTS and getting soldiers reacclimated into society. You know, if we're not taking care of them and giving them the support they need especially as they re-enter society, it's just it's unbelievable. We were just talking about
and that's leadership.
Yeah, right. And
that's leadership. Yeah,
for the ultimate sacrifice, and they lead all the way through their service, and then when they come home, you know, nobody's doing anything to help them out. At least not to the extent that I think they should. We were talking earlier about a gentleman here in Texas who's doing a walk, a march. Actually, he's doing a 628-mile march. He's a veteran, and it's called Never Quit March. And he's going to be marching 628 miles. To raise awareness and to help, you know, raise money and stuff for the Lone Survivor Foundation and to, I guess, about post-traumatic stress. So it's
and that's important.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I know through the NCPA, you've just got there not too long ago, right? I mean, this is where you landed when you first came to Texas.
Yeah, January 2015.
Okay.
So, I come out to speak for them in one of their lecture series in September 2014. Didn't know that they were looking for some leadership change. And so October of 2014, they asked me to consider it. And we prayed about it as a family, and we made the move back to Texas because my last assignment in the Army was in Fort Hood.
Oh, okay. So it's not necessarily welcome; it's welcome back. That's good.
That's right.
This is the best place to be. So I want to ask you a couple other questions. So I know we had some listeners email in. One of the things probably one of the most commented things that I get from listeners is how active you are in social media. Are you managing your own account? Because bravo to you. I run a marketing firm, so we do a lot of social media monitoring and posting, and I've always been fascinated with the level of activity and accuracy that you seem to post with.
Well, if my name is on it, I wrote it. That's the most important thing. And I do have, AlanBWest.com is the website. And I do have, an editor, an associate editor, and Michelle Hickford and Michelle Jesse. And they do a fantastic job. But it is my responsibility to, write at least 2 daily op-ed pieces. I normally do that at the end of the day for the following day. And, on occasion, I will see some, critical things that, I can weigh in on, policy or some current events. And so we use the Facebook and the Twitter to do that as well.
Yeah, it's super active on Facebook. Encourage listeners to go check them out. I think it's facebook.com/ Alan B. West.
That's correct.
Yep. Always great stuff on there. I'm sure our listeners are also interested, as active as you are and as many things have you done, what are some of the things outside of work and serving that keeps you busy or that you're active and involved in?
Oh, sure. You have to, have your getaway time. And so, as I do a good bit of, a little distance running. Now, it's down to, 3 to 5 miles, but that, keeps the head clear and keeps me in shape. I mean, physical and spiritual fitness is very important. I'm a motorcycle rider, and I'm a master scuba diver. Of course, having left South Florida, it's a little bit more difficult now to get, scuba diving in out here in North Texas. But, I just still try to get back to South Florida, get a couple trips in, and maybe I'll get a trip out of, Dallas-Fort Worth to somewhere down in the Caribbean, like the Caymans or somewhere, get a little, weekend dive trip in. But avid reader, that's another thing. You have to stay up on the issues, and I love ancient military history. So that's pretty much, and I love to go out and shoot. I tell you, it's nothing better than to go to I go to the Garland Public public shooting range over in Garland, Texas, and bust some caps, put some lead down range. That's a liberating feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, there's perhaps nothing better than that. Well, I know your time is precious, and I appreciate all the time that you spent with us. So I want to just thank you so much again for joining us on the show and shedding some light and some leadership skills to our listeners. I know that we'll get tons of feedback from that. So thank you so much for your time, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Jason, Josh, thank you, and anytime.
All right, that business tip that we talked about just a while ago is coming up. We'll do that next. What a great interview, right?
How am I going to outdo that?
I don't know.
I got to do a business tip on leadership after Colonel Alan West.
Yeah, you got to figure it out, bro.
All right.
More of The Hook up next.
Got a call last night.
We have our work cut out for us. This is The Hook. Jason Arsmont there, the marketing maverick, thehookradio.com. Just had Alan West on. And wow, this segment's going
I got to follow Alan West.
to really suck compared to those last two. I don't know. What are we going to do? We had the business tip brought to you by OnToBox.
OnToBox Training.
That's right.
Yeah, OnToBoxTraining.com. This is our powerful training for professional people. If your organization is, maybe needing help in bringing proper education or training to sales, operation, accounting, and financing, OnToBox Training is a place that you want to look. Check us out at ontoboxtraining.com. We do have we have a big event coming up. I want to say it's big. It's held over at the Microsoft store there. Where's it at? Westheimer. Yeah, 5015 Westheimer.
Okay.
It's coming up on March 24th. It's remember we did a show a couple weeks back about how to capitalize on an election year, how to grow your business, take advantage. So now we've got that requested for Microsoft, asked us to come in and do a workshop on that. So we'll be over there doing that on March 24th. You can go to where should they go?
Thehookradio.com first.
Yeah,
And
that'll
then you
link
can get-
to. There's all these links. Actually, if you just go to ontoboxtraining.com, you'll see it right on the homepage. Upcoming event, and that'll take you to it.
Yeah, you just totally messed up following Alan West.
Gosh,
by
man, I'm
stumbling
just,
on this.
Yeah.
But again, if you go to thehookradio.com, you can reach out to anything from there.
Well, you're doing a
So-
great job of leading me through you've been a great leader in this for me. So let's talk a little bit about leadership and how maybe we can lead the end of this show following Alan West there. Man, what a great
We
one.
should have cut it off after 45 minutes, right?
Yeah, that's going to be it, folks. We're just going to be done. No, it's interesting. Leadership's always been something that I've always been fascinated with. I grew up, going to Boy Scouts, and I was in martial arts, and there was always like a hierarchy or this tier kind of level of respect, and I always took to that extremely well. I knew where everyone's position was. I knew where my position was, and I think I learned that there's more than a rank, but it's something that a true leader really kind of earns that title of being that leader. It's not just, you're a black belt, so everybody has to bow to you and pay respect. You're not just an Eagle Scout, but it's, it's how you live your life. It's how people see you, handle yourself, whether you're in the art of doing martial arts or you're in the scout camp or the meeting, but, what are you doing outside of it? And so, I think what we'll do is we'll try to break down some of those things that make a good leader. I mean, you've got your sons in Scouts now.
Yes. Well, my oldest is. He's 9. And then the youngest is only 5. So he's got a couple years or about a year and a half until he gets into Scouts.
Because you're just putting him right into, I guess they're still in Cub Scouts, right?
Yeah, it's Tiger Scouts.
Actually,
Billy is a bear, and then he's got Weeblo 1, Weeblo 2, and then I got drafted into being a den leader.
Oh, come on, man. But it's so awesome. I know we were laughing about that before because it's always like, one more thing, you got to dedicate all your time. Those of you who aren't familiar with Scouts, I encourage you to go get familiar with it. It was a big, big part of my life.
So here's what happened with me, though, is that I was helping out. Our den leader is Christine Ginch, and our scout leader is Mike Kane, and both of them are fantastic in the business world as well as in scouting. And she told him, look, he's helping out a lot, but he doesn't want to be a den leader because my thing was wearing the uniform because I didn't feel like I really deserved to wear the uniform.
The uniforms,
so
man.
Mike comes up and he says, do you care about the kids? I'm like, oh, come on, dog.
It's for the cheering. It's for the cheering. Yeah, you got to
do you care? If you care about the kids, then this is a no-brainer for you. I'm like, all right, I'll do it.
Well, and that's why they end up getting great leaders, because those are the folks that'll step up and do it. My scout leader, as I was saying earlier, has been a good part of my life, on and off again. He pops back in during interesting times when I need support. And Mr. Armando Aguirre, I'm sure he's out there listening, because he'll email me. He's always one of the few people that'll send me a personal email because he listened to the show and wanted to give a comment or tee up another guest or something. So I thank you for that, Mr. Gary. And definitely check out scouting. So in the business world, though, it's a little different, right? I mean, a lot of times us small business owners, we already somewhat know how to be a leader. And we're probably a leader because we're leading with passion. We started a company, we've got this vision, and people see that we're passionate about it and we're, energized, and it's easy to kind of get behind somebody that is, excited. One of the things that we were talking about with Colonel West was how to build other leaders within your organization, because that's really what it comes down to. Not just talking about Josh because he's sitting here, but Josh has been a really intricate part in our company in that I have somebody else that has come up and is now a leader of himself within our organization and can lead our clients and can lead, strategy teams and lead our design team into the right direction. And that means that I don't have to do those things. So I like that. It puts more time on my plate for doing other things,
But it also takes a certain way to lead people to be able to do that, instead of, because you have all the tools that it takes a lot of times, but how much is the person that is doing the leading willing to give you a little bit of rope to go and do it on your own?
Yeah, you definitely can't micromanage. And I've accumulated a couple things over, last night going through several different websites, I've pulled some other ideas together. So I'll kind of lay them out here. The ones that I found was that I've realized that I've done well or that I need to work on. And one is just having a clear chain of command. I know whenever I first started my businesses, everyone just worked for everybody, including me. And it was like, okay, so who do I report to? Who do I tell when I need a day off or I don't agree with something? So as you start getting up, you have to have a clear chain of command. You've got to have an org chart within your organization so everybody knows where everybody stands, just like in the military or any other, place where there's, a regimen, there's strict discipline to how things are done. Your company should be ran the same way. If you're trying to train up somebody else to be a leader, I think it's important to make sure that you give them objectives that are bigger than their own objective, which means that they're going to have to instill confidence and lead other people to get something done. It's one thing if I just task an employee with, hey, make sure I have send me this spreadsheet every week. Okay, well, that's great. They can probably do that spreadsheet on their own. If I tell them, hey, work with other departments to put a master spreadsheet together, and you're in charge of that, well, now all of a sudden they have to work with other people and lead other people to get the spreadsheet and get the data and get all the things. And so think about that when you're putting people in place to build them as a leader. How can you give them objectives that are bigger than their own efforts, meaning they're going to have to lean on other team members to get their work done? Another one here is push what is required. And that means, go beyond normal boundaries of what's expected. I've spent time obviously running, and I love going to the gym and exercising and working out. And one of the things I've always learned is that in anything physical, in order to get better, you have to push yourself past the point of capability until that now becomes the new norm. And I think it's the same thing within employees. When they first come on board, maybe they're struggling, they're having to get their bearings, they're figuring out what's what, how to use your CRM, how to interact with the team. But as time goes on, they should be able to handle more and more work. And that doesn't mean that they're working all night and weekends doing it, but that they should become very efficient because they become masterful at it. And the only way they're going to do that is if you put enough on their plate to force them to do it. So I'm a big fan of pushing what's required and continue to grow what you expect of them. And that'll more than likely have them lean on other team members to help them get those things done. I think the other thing that's important is a clear path for advancement. And this is really tough, I know, for a lot of us small companies. I've been there where I've only had 2, 3, 4 people on my team. And my hopes were that everybody would be able to, make a lot of money and advance, but you don't really have the, the formula just yet on how that's going to go. But I think it's important to at least instill in your staff that you have hopes for them greater than their current position, or that if the company does grow, you will have this opportunity when we get to this financial milestone or this client number milestone, whatever it is. Having a clear path for advancement gives people hope, gives them interest, allows them to have buy-in and commitment and kind of a vested interest in your organization. So make sure and give them some type of clear path for advancement.
Which is why I'm vice president right now.
Right. So when we reach the milestone, now
I figured I'd throw it out on a radio show. That's the best way
then
to
you can't back out.
like deer in the headlights right here.
And then finally, I think it's really important that if you're building up leaders, you're instilling responsibility on their shoulders that you can't go over mom or dad's head. It's just like happens in the family. If mom says something, dad can't come back around and say, hey, no, then we can do it a different way, right? If mom says no, it's no. And so if I instill responsibility in one of my employees and they make a decision to their staff, I cannot go over their head and counteract that decision. And I think that's really tough for a lot of us type A personality business owners. You have to make sure that you give them the responsibility, you allow them to do it. If you find out that they're making a mistake or you don't agree, you got to pull them aside one-on-one, ask them to redirect it and go talk back to their staff, but you cannot go interject. And I see that's probably the number one issue that I see with most managers whenever I go in and I do consulting and look at team building and stuff like that is the owner won't get out of the way and he won't respect the authority that he gave to the team. So those are probably all things that I do fairly well and I do horribly at times as well. So things to keep in mind. I'll post this on my Facebook page.
Can I do a report card for you and we'll post that too?
Yeah, no. Well, I haven't given you that level of authority yet.
As vice president.
As VP, I'd like to make.
I think this is probably within my my title to do something like that. No.
Why don't we go back and we'll set a clear path for advancement? What was that? That was number
4.
Yeah, number 4.
Yeah, we'll go
you
back
wrote
to
that one down.
Yeah,
What did you write it down for? That's creepy.
I took notes on all this so that we could evaluate later.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
I will post it on my Facebook so you guys can hold me accountable. We can hold each other accountable and make sure that we're continuing to be better leaders and to build better leaders. I think we're close to out of time for today's show.
To find your Facebook, by the way, Jason Arsmont, you can search him that way. You can also go to the website, thehookradio.com. We have a newsletter. Not only that, but if you ever have any questions, you can fill out the form to send a question through. Email us through that. Of course, social media, all of our websites are on this one central location, thehookradio.com. So you can find all of us right there, okay? So we'll be back next week. That's Jason Arsmont, the Marketing Maverick. We'll see you next time on The Hook.